We're back on Let's Just Talk with Dr. Reginald and Renea Morris, and we're talking about their new book, Resurrect Your Dead Marriage, and everything is based on what they went through. Now, you have one more incident before we get into the book itself.
Right.
What happened the third time around?
So what happened the third time around was very different than what happened the first two times, because we decided to reconcile the previous times, and we had pretty short separations.
Right.
This last time, I decided that I didn't want to reconcile, and I wanted to get a divorce. In fact, I went to an attorney and filed for divorce. And that's what led us to this book, because the marriage really had died. Now, what's interesting is this whole situation, in my mind, was based on me really losing fellowship with the Lord. And part of that was because of some trauma that I had dealt with and was trying to deal with, that really took me down a downward spiral in my life, which caused a lot of personal issues and just unearthed a lot of demons that were there. Back to, we talked about unresolved issues, we talked about fear that I had. All those were really, brought to me in 3D, if you will, to try to deal with in, I would say, a compromised physical and mental state.
So from my perspective, when we talk about this last separation,
Right.
what's really interesting about it, number one, is, she came to me and said she wanted a divorce. Now that's really interesting, because we just got finished talking about how we had been working on marriage and having dates, and we had spent 2 years making sure that we really were going to stay together. So for her to come to me and say she wanted a divorce, and she was not interested, zero interest in trying to reconcile or even work it out. Literally, she came on one day and said, I wanted a divorce. I didn't know she had already talked to a lawyer. And the next day she moved out, cut off all communication with me, and, took her things and ran. So all of a sudden, I found myself going, wait a second. I still, first of all, what just happened? Second thing, wait, what am I supposed to do now? And so I had a decision, to make, which I thought the decision had been made for me. Because all I had been told before is that it takes two people in a marriage, have to work things out, and if you're not willing to reconcile, there's only one answer, which is divorce, right? And so what I was thinking of was, well, let me call my lawyer and get this thing started, and maybe I better start jockeying for the money and all these other things, the things you start
thinking
about.
Your mother and your relatives going like, let's fix him up or something?
Well, let me tell you what my parents were saying. Well, they were saying, remember number one, number two, 3 strikes, she's out.
Right.
That's the message they all said to me. And, they had nothing good to say about this woman at that time.
Because you're very overprotective of your children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they're probably around my age anyhow. Right. And they're probably Christian, right? And they're going,
yes.
What is this girl doing to you?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, yeah, and my brothers, because, I have 7 siblings, and they were all like, we'll go find her for you, but not in a good way, And so what that did for me is, yes, I could have got caught up in the hype, because that's really what it was.
Right.
It was feeling good that I had people on my back who were willing to go to war for me and everything else. Right. But something didn't settle in my spirit, and that led me to go and ask the Lord, what is it that you want? Because one thing, when she asked me for a divorce, I said no. And I said no on one condition, and that was it. I said I wasn't going to divorce because I made a covenant between you and God, and I was no covenant breaker. So I said, if you want to be a covenant breaker, go right ahead. But I'm going to stick in this thing. I had no idea what I was talking about. I had no idea that even God was with me. I was just like, okay, that sounds good. That sounds spiritual.
Right.
You know. So the next thing that I did is in having this conversation with God, you know, it had a lot of boo-hooing and all the tissues are all gone by this point. So, God came back to me and said, what do you want to do here? I was like, God, I came for wisdom. This is really not wisdom here.
Right.
But he
right.
said, no, what is it you want to do? And I learned something there. In that conversation, he was trying to tell me something. I had a choice. I had a decision to make, and that really changed my whole frame of thinking. Because most Christians think that they are powerless in this scenario,
Right.
and they are not powerless. The other thing that the Lord was trying to show me was that's exactly where the enemy's trying to take you. He wants you to think you're powerless. He thinks you'll have no decision to be made.
Right.
He wants you to think that everything is lost, and what he wants you to do is surrender.
Give up.
And give up. Because think about it. She's got everything. She's got you, really in a tough spot. And so at that moment, I made a decision that I had already said that I wasn't going to divorce. But now I had to make a decision to believe something that seemed unbelievable.
Right. And where were you at that point when he told you that?
So basically, I was very frustrated with him because I saw that the divorce proceedings were not going to go along swimmingly. And
Yeah, I was resisting.
yeah, and we did not have conversations. And so I didn't know that his decision to say no to the divorce went to the extent that he started praying for me and for my restoration, not necessarily to him, but to the Lord.
Right.
So it was that intercessory prayer that he was doing in his prayer closet that really spurred the resurrection. But for me, I didn't want to have anything to do with him.
Okay.
It made me resist even further.
I want to ask you about the prayer closet. Because you actually go into a closet
It's a
and
real
pray.
closet.
It's a real closet.
Okay.
It was actually her closet.
It was her closet
It made
that you
more
went,
s- it made
you went
more-
into her closet.
Yes,
big
it made great
walk-in
sense.
That did.
Oh, wait a second. I just got finished building that closet.
You weren't going to leave it.
And I gave her
right?
3 extra feet.
Right.
So I was going to use that 3 feet and build
Good
my
idea
closet.
when you think about it. You know what? I did have a closet that had a light in it. I mean, a whole light. I could do a craft show and everything. So actually, you would go in there and
Yeah.
pray.
That's exactly what. Not only did I go in there and pray, I did. If you're familiar with the whole War Room movie that came out a couple years ago,
Right.
it was doing more than just going pray. It was actually taking scriptures and building actual prayers based on not only the scripture but the
Right.
situation. So not
Right.
only was I praying for her, but I ended up praying for every member of our family. And I must have had, I don't know how many prayers on the wall. And I had her pictures on the wall
Oh, okay.
from different times in our marriage. And
wow.
so there was scriptures that went along with it, prayers that went along with it. And it was on every wall of the.
How
of
big
the-
was this closet?
Oh, she has a big.
pretty
She has a
big
pretty
It's a
big
pretty
closet.
good-sized closet.
She has a pretty big closet.
Okay, so what did it take finally for you to turn around?
It really was an encounter with God. It
Right.
was supernatural. I felt like I was at a crossroads in my life.
Right.
We were probably a week away from our final conversation with the attorney and the magistrate on the divorce. And I had to decide, am I going to go through with this or not?
Right.
And I had this sense of foreboding. I couldn't sleep. It was unrest in my spirit. And what's interesting is the experience that I had can be compared to a conversion experience when you accept the Lord.
Right.
Because you know when it happens. And you were one way before it happened, and you're different after the experience. And so the Lord started to show me things that I had thought I knew about how he felt, things that he said that I misinterpreted, miscommunications that we had. He really showed me how deceived I was. told me about my fears, helped me realize that even though I felt horrible about the situation and what I had done, that I really could come back, that it wasn't too late.
Right. And on that note, we have to take a short break. And we'll be right back to tell the rest of the story and why you wrote the book and how you're going to help other people.
Exactly.
Okay. And the book is Resurrect Your Dead Marriage by Dr. Reginald and Renea Morris. And we'll be right back after these important messages.
I've won Olympic gold medals. But this is a race I really want to win.
10 people in America drown every day.
It's the race to save lives.
1 in 5 kids are younger than me.
Growing up, my mom was afraid of the water, something she did not want me to feel.
So I enrolled Missy in swim lessons.
Swimming became my passion. It changed my life. And now you can do the same for someone that you love. Drowning is preventable. Did you know that swim lessons reduce the risk by 88%? Visit usaswimmingfoundation.org to find, get, or give a swim lesson.
There's nothing more precious than your child's well-being.
So act now before it's too late.
I'm glad I did.
Thanks, Mom. The USA Swimming Foundation, saving lives and building champions.
We're back on Let's Just Talk with Dr. Reginald and Renea Morris and their new book, Resurrect Your Dead Marriage. This is leaving us on the edge of our seats, and it will our audience too. So now what happens, my dear?
So I had stayed in a hotel room that night because I was going to fly out to California because I was either going to see the person that I was thinking I was going to live with the rest of my life after we divorced, or I was going to make a quality decision and come back to my marriage. It was tough for me, but the Lord got a hold of me, and I came to my senses. But at the same time, I ended up finding myself in, I guess what I would say is I really had this spiritual encounter that led me down this path where I just knew that if I was able to talk to my husband, that everything was going to be okay. And the interesting thing about this is when he got the call, actually you got another knock on the door.
Yeah, I get these knocks from that you create, but yes, I got one of those knocks.
2 or 3 knocks.
Yeah,
There was
knock.
a few knocks on the door.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I actually ended up going to the hospital,
Right.
and he came to see me at the hospital.
See, what I wanted to see, my mom used to say something when I was growing up. She used to say, you know, if you guys mess up, I'm going to sick the Lord on you. Okay? And, you know, so she said, if you ever get away, so you ever stray, I'm going to sick the Lord on you. And, you know, and I heard that as I was growing up, not only from my mother, but other, in the church. And what that
Right.
usually would mean is if someone strayed away from the Lord, or, that they would go in their prayer closet and pray, and that God would, help them get back on path.
Everybody goes in prayer closets?
Well, in my family, that's just kind of the thing to do.
Okay.
My mom had been a prayer
Okay.
closet warrior for years.
Really?
So so I grew up watching that. That's the
Okay.
one part of the spiritual heritage I took away. But the interesting part about this is this: here it is. I find out that my wife's in a relationship with another person. She has left. She's filed for divorce. She's taken everything, kind of thing. I have been left with nothing.
Zimmo again.
Yeah, that's a drama of its own. And so, I go to the Lord and ask him, what to do next.
Right.
Find out, that there is hope in the Word. Not only is there only hope, but there is a plan that God already has. So guess what I did? I sicked the Lord on it. And that's what the book does for all your viewers out there, is I actually share what the Lord, step by step, what the Lord took me through so they could do it themselves. Including, in the book, you can actually get the exact same prayers that I prayed to bring her home. So my point here is, there's not only hope, but there is resources that God brings available. Because that conversion experience that she's referring to, it's the same experience that happens when someone, gets converted, but it's also designed for marriages in crisis. Unfortunately, the church today does not know it. And that's why we wrote the book, because God wanted us to get it out there. Number one, to get this revelation out there. Number two, he wants resources brought so that churches know how to do it, that they can start teaching their people. We can provide not just marital counseling, but pastoral counseling services that we can help people step by step. So for those people who feel like they can't do it by themselves, they now have people like us that they can work with on a regular basis to walk through it so they don't have to do it alone.
And you're sharing it. You're sharing your experiences and what you went through and how you came together and what God did for you. Am I right?
Yes, and it's good now.
And it's good.
Yes, because the marriage resurrection not only impacts this relationship, it impacts this relationship.
And your children.
And our children.
Yeah, the entire family.
Yeah, so, because there were situations as a result of our split up that, like my son told me he was never going to have anything to do with me. My daughter told her that she was done with her. Their relationships with others was on the rocks, and even their careers were in trouble.
But God has turned all that around. And not only are they close to us now, but they're also close to each other.
And what about your family? What about your extended family, like your parents and your relatives? Are they on board?
They are on board now. In fact, I last year flew back out to where my family, my brothers, and they just all said, I couldn't do, brother, what you did, And so, but where's that book? In fact, one of them just recently had to go through the same thing in his marriage, and he called me up to give me that book, brother.
And he went into the prayer closet too. And I'm not making fun of it. I'm just not used to it.
Yes, and so he's had to do the exact same thing. And so I was able through, because of the services and the fact that we actually have the book, he's been able to take where I left off and start doing it himself.
Now you're doing seminars, you want to do television, you want to do all the different things that will help people realize that there is hope.
Well, yeah, because
and guidance.
This was a lonely place that he
that
was
both
in
are,
when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because there was no help, there were no resources. We had to figure it out.
You had to figure it out by yourself.
And the other thing is, remember I talked about earlier about dreams.
Right.
This is actually God's dream for us from the beginning. We just had to take a long, snaky road to get there.
Well, guess what? God did, when you think about it, the apostles did too.
Exactly.
Right? It doesn't automatically just happen.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why one of the things you had mentioned earlier is we really want to tell the audience, don't bail out. The real thing God's trying to get you through, the real answer of life that you've been waiting for and wishing you had is on the other side.
And see, and on top of it, you've become really close friends again too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you now can open up to him. Mm-hmm. And do you open up to her?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right,
I'm one of those guys, open book kind of guy.
Yeah, I am too. And that's the cool thing. It's almost like yin and yang. You always have to have that other person. Because if you were married to the same thing that you are,
yeah, that would be.
Well, that'd be scary. Would that be scary? You'd be crying all the time, right?
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, right. So, I think the book is a guide as well on what to do. Am I right?
That's exactly the way it was written.
So, you're working with different churches. You're doing. Oh, I love this because we had a radio interview too. I'm going to tell the audience we had a radio interview. You do a travel club too, but not just with the couples. You do it with the kids.
Yes.
Right.
So we started divorce-proof marriage vacations.
Divorce-proof marriage vacations.
Yes.
Okay.
So during those, we go to 5-star resorts in Mexico and different places around the world. And we allow couples to go with us very affordably, like $75 a day kind of thing. And they can bring their whole family. And while they're there, they attend seminar. Like the kids are going their program. The parents are going through the divorce-proof marriage seminars with us. And then we bring the whole family again so they have an opportunity to work on those things as a family instead of having to wait till they get home and get back into the toughness of life.
Right, and I think that's really important because people should have fun in their marriages.
Yeah.
You know, and we had talked earlier about get rid of the digital equipment
Oh my God, yes.
when you're going out to dinner, where you're doing your date night,
Yes.
because you really want to show that person how special they are, right?
And you need to be present.
That's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Not in a different world.
Exactly.
Right. So, you know, I'm so excited about the book. I'm so excited about what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
There needs to be more people like you, seriously, to really help marriages. Because if you understand from the very beginning and you grow together, you're going to have bumps
Right.
up and down the road. Marriage isn't perfect, right? But having this guide, you know, with people that have already been through it is really important. And we want to thank you for your service in this,
you.
going through what you went through to accomplish it. And we want to congratulate you on your success
Well, thank
and
you.
your continued success.
Thank you.
And would you give your website out again and where
Yes.
people can buy the book?
Yeah, so you can get a copy of our book at either Amazon or your local Christian bookstore, but you can also go to our website at divorceproof.org. Not only get the book, but learn all the different programs and services that are available.
And you have an event calendar and all that?
We have an event calendar.
Okay,
Exactly.
that's good. So we can't thank you enough. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
for
sharing.
having us.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you having us.
Oh, I appreciate it too. You've made me excited about marriage again.
Awesome.
Not that I was ever, you know, but it does. It gives you absolute hope, and you know, because as you grow older, things change. You know, and if you're friends,
Yeah.
that's important. And I really believe in our marriage vows, and I think that's important too.
Yes.
Right. And so we'll see you next time on Kathryn Raaker's Let's Just Talk.